It's time now for County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Brad Miller as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives here in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's County-Wide.
Welcome to County-Wide. I'm Paul David. Great to have you in studio with us today. Tom O'Halloran joins us. It's been about a year since you've been here.
It has been. It's been too long of a time.
It has been too long.
We enjoy talking to one another anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Verde River Basin Partnership. Tom O'Halloran is the chair there, and you had a recent meeting. I think we want to start out maybe with that, but before we do the ADWR meeting that was recent, can we go back to last year when you were here? We did a series of shows with you, and we were talking about the USGS.
They all led up
report.
to the report that the United States Geological Survey put out on our future water supply and what's happening with the Verde River.
And I want to know from you, if, since that time, kind of what has happened?
Well, the first thing is when the report came out, it said that the Verde River, we've been impacting the river since 1910, ever since we started pumping water, which is logical. Groundwater pumpage relates to surface water and the amount of water in a river or stream. And so there is a direct impact, and that showed it very clearly. And in fact, it showed that it's going to continue on into the future. The second thing that it showed that is in areas around the Cottonwood area, Clarkdale area, and up towards Sedona and up towards Flagstaff, there's going to be a drop over the next 100 years in water levels of at least, not just, but at least 100 feet. And we have to remember that everything in that study was based on conservative population numbers. We cut whatever the projected numbers were going to be for this area in half.
Oh.
And so it wasn't...
Why?
Well, because we didn't want to be accused of cooking the books.
Okay.
And so you just come out and you say, okay, we're going to look at this, but we're going to look at it from a conservative process,
Slow
assumptions,
growth, okay.
Slower growth, and than we historically have had and what's projected that we will have, so that people can get a really good flavor of what impact we're going to have even with slow growth.
Gotcha.
We used 3 different scenarios, but all 3 of them were based on a slower growth projection than we normally would have.
Okay.
So when I say at least 100 feet, it's going to be, that's why I can say safely at least 100 feet.
Gotcha.
Now, if we do some things right, maybe it's not going to be 100 feet, but that's going to be if we plan right for the future, if we put in conservation measures that are appropriate, if we reuse water appropriately, if we augment water supplies some way. I mean, if we grow appropriately, all that has to be taken into consideration. And it just doesn't start overnight. You have to start it now.
We were talking before the show how fast 20 years goes by. And I was talking to you about how I remember 20 years ago doing the news and having Chip Davis and
Mike Baker
talking about Big Chino Aquifer, Big Chino Basin. And here we are 20 years down the road still talking about that.
We're still talking about it. The only thing that's changed a little bit is that now the Prescott area communities do have the right to take water out of that basin. There are studies going on, thank God, that will help. In fact, they're going to work with the model that the USGS did to determine some of the impacts of bringing that water out of the basin, and those will take about 5 years. That's being paid for by the Prescott area communities, Prescott Valley, and SRP. And the USGS is working on that process right now. But that's just, again, in a localized region. We need that done on a larger scale.
The whole state. Whole country.
The whole state. The state just released their strategic vision. Now, mind you, a vision is not a plan.
Right.
And so they're going to go through a multi-decade process to get us from vision to plan to funding sources to implementation.
That's kind of scary.
Well,
After we have seen the last 20 years go by, that's kind of scary because I've seen the 20 years go by now.
It can go by very fast, and it also requires people if you're going to really get there, it requires people with knowledge, and it requires people that are going to be dedicated to the process and are not going to be are going to understand the issues involved in the process. Not just the scientists, but the leaders of the state, the citizens of the state, the people that are in the financial community that understand the implications to our economy and the implications to the cost of these projects that are envisioned for the future. And you know, I wrote an op-ed not too long ago about another shoe has dropped. And, you know, we've had now the recent piece that came out, the study by ADWR, Arizona,
which we're going to talk about a little bit. Yeah.
And that study indicates that they need this state. The experts in this state, water-wise, feel that this state in the next 25 to 100 years is going to need an additional 900,000 to 3.2 million acre-feet of additional water supplies over and above what we have today in order to be able to deal with population. Because our population in the next 100 years is going to go from about 7 million today to over 18 million.
Those are huge numbers.
Those are huge numbers.
Yeah.
In our region, it's going to, within the next 40 years, it's going to triple in population.
Okay.
And we are having problems with water now. And so that study has come out. The USGS study has come out saying we have a problem. The SIWRM study, they call it, it's the Central Yavapai Highlands Water Resource Management Study. And that's been done by the cities and towns in this area, the county, and the Bureau of Reclamation. And that's identified that we have an unmet demand. We don't have water for our additional growth of as much as 80,000 acre-feet. Well, that's double what we use today. We have to find that water. And the river water is over-allocated, so we're not going to find it in the river. Our groundwater is being impacted, so long-term, we're not going to find it there. And they're talking about conservation and all the good things that you have to do, and then augmentation from outside. And then another study was the Arizona Water Development Commission that led to the ADWR strategic vision.
Okay.
And finally you have the Colorado River Supply and Demand Study. Now there's 5 studies. Each one of these studies has something in common. We are short of water into the future. We must start to take action now. And then the other thing they have in common is if we do not, it will have a direct impact on our economy. And so we will not be able to be competitive as a region if we don't deal with our water resource issues.
Now, why do we create a vision that takes 25 years to accomplish, or more?
Well, because we got late. Again, you and I were talking before the show. In 1980, we did the groundwater code. A great thing at the time, and then that followed quickly the building of the Central Arizona Project Canal, and then we did water banking, and then we did Indian rights settlements and some other things. So we haven't sat on the sidelines, but in a way we have a little bit, because from 1980 till now, we've gone from a couple million people in the state to 7 million people in the state.
Right.
And in the intervening time, we've lost more of our surface waters. There's a process down in the Phoenix and Tucson areas called the Central Groundwater Replenishment District, Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District. And basically, you would think that, well, all that canal water's coming down, we don't have a problem down in Central Arizona. Well, that's not true, because the district was created so that they could continue to develop water, develop housing, and develop other developments in areas that don't have access to the canal today. And those areas are allowed to basically de-water the aquifers underneath them, and then in the future, they'll go to the canal and get water, but have to pay for all the infrastructure costs associated with that. Oh. Now go back to California, to $700 million to build a desalinization plant in San Diego. That's in the Arizona Strategic Vision Report. $700 million to build a desalinization plant and a 10-mile pipeline, today's dollars, to deal with 60,000 acre-feet of water. $700 million in today's dollars.
Wow.
So you're talking about huge infrastructure costs just to deal with the people down in the valley down there. There's going to be up to 500,000 homes that are in that system, or going to be in that system, that eventually will have to have a whole new series of infrastructure brought in if they can find the water. Because the Colorado River study has told us that the Colorado River Basin is going to be short by up to 3.2 million acre-feet of water.
Isn't it already coming up a little short?
Oh, it could.
For some folks?
By 2016, the Department of Interior says if our climate doesn't change, if we don't get out of this drought, if things continue the way they are, there'll be a shortage on the Colorado River. By 2016, it's around the corner.
I heard 17 cities and towns in California right now are also coming up short this year.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with the Colorado River for the most part, but it does have to do with what's the reality of water in the West. And a lot of people, I don't get it, but water's not a convenience. It's a necessity. You know, if we're a state,
it's a must.
It's a must.
Yeah.
If you're a state, you look at education. You need a good education. You need workforce development. You need a sound and viable economy. You need good health care, and you need water and air.
Yeah. And water and air.
And if people start worrying about, if we don't have air, we have a big problem in the whole. But if people start worrying about this state in water supplies in the future, then our economy is going to be hit. Because people are going to say, what? Why am I going to move there? If I just got our website we've been getting information from people from outside of the state asking us questions. I bought a home down in Goodyear. Can I be? Is it realistic that my investment is a good investment now that I'm seeing what's happening in the Southwest? And my answer to that person is going to be, in your lifetime, it'll be a sound investment. It's going to cost you more for water year after year after year as energy prices go up, as the cost of water goes up. We have water. I've said this before. The water we get through our lines is free. We pay for the infrastructure. Those costs will continue to rise. And then when you have to augment that supply from outside the area, then you'll really see a rise in water cost. And that if you can find water.
Right. We got to take a break.
Yep.
We have to take a break. Tom O'Halloran with the Verde River Basin Partnership in studio today. I'm Paul David. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break, and we'll be right back with Countywide.
I would steal pills from my friend's mom.
We talk about all the common drugs, but never prescription medication.
I was addicted to pills.
Had I more knowledge, I would have done things differently.
Secure your medications and talk with your kids. Visit drugfree.org.
Thanks for calling the GED Pep Talk Center. Jerry Stiller speaking. Your level 7 in-your-face pep talk.
I can keep pushing. Believe me, I'm good at it. But at some point, you're going to need to start pushing yourself.
Once you've got your GED diploma, you'll feel so good about yourself.
You tell them. You can't change your past, but you can definitely change your future. That makes me so happy, I'm ready to bust out a dance.
Mr. Trejo, can I transfer this guy to you? My gentle technique isn't really working. You need something a little more
persuasive.
Yes.
You listen, and you listen good.
Hey, where's my sandwich? Terry? Terry!
Take it from me, the King DMC. It's a real cool thing to get your GED.
Get that diploma!
Now hold on and we'll find you free GED classes. Capiche?
Whatever motivation you need, we've got a pep talk for you. Get your GED pep talk and find free classes at yourged.org.
A single ember from a wildfire can travel over a mile. That ember can ignite and destroy your home or community. You can't control where that ember will land. Only what happens before it does. Visit fireadapted.org to learn how you can help protect your community from wildfires.
Ronnie had huge aspirations.
He knew he could get pills in the community.
He found his body in an apartment in Telford.
I never thought my son would take prescription drugs without a prescription.
Secure your medications and talk with your kids. Visit drugfree.org.
Welcome back to Countywide. Chairman for the Verde River Basin Partnership, Tom O'Halloran in studio today. I'm Paul David. Great to have you along. Let's jump right back into it because I know you've always got plenty to say when you come into studio.
You know, we talked a little bit about impacts and costs and stuff like that. And, you know, Cyworms was very clear in one of his Phase 1 summaries. There's been 3 phases. Phase 1 summary report says the people that are going to be impacted the most are the people that are living here today from a cost perspective.
Okay.
Who's going to pay for this infrastructure? The people that live here today. And the sooner we can plan, the sooner we can get out there and recognize the problem, the less it's going to cost.
Right.
CPI, cost producer index, is is about 3% on average over decades. But construction cost index is at least 2% higher than that. So when you delay implementation of projects, you delay planning and so forth and so on, what you do is add cost. And when you add construction cost, you add more cost. So for every 10 years that goes by, if you use 3% for CPI and 5% for construction cost index, you're increasing your cost every 10 years that goes by 50%.
Wow.
And if the number that you're using today is hard to swallow, think of what the 50% increase is going to be.
Right, we see that with road work all the time.
All the time.
Well, we should have done that 10 years ago because it would have been this amount of money.
And then we've requested that we start using construction cost index as the baseline for how we plan things in the future. And let's say to people, okay, here's what it's going to cost today, but we're going to tell you what it's going to cost if we wait 20 years and 40 years and 60 years. Because it is going to, it continues to escalate, and we've seen it around the country. The director of ADWR and the governor have both identified that Arizona's at a crossroads. We either do something or we cause ourselves some serious economic problems. And the Bureau of Reclamation has identified that the entire Southwest. So this is not something that is just, a couple of people in the Verde Valley saying we might have a water problem. The entire community of water experts in the Southwest has said we have a water problem here in the state, in our region, and throughout the southwestern United States, and we have to do something about it. I would challenge those that say we don't have a problem to come in and talk. I'd love to sit here with anybody and debate the issue that we don't have a water problem and that we don't have to start solving it now.
Right.
Now, do we have to run out in a panic and worry? No, not today. But if you don't start dealing with it now, you will have to get to that point where it's going to cost you much more. It's going to cost your business much more. It's going to cost our tourism business much more. And some of the things that we're doing aren't even holistic. When the Cyworms project, which is the regional one here, one of the things they aren't looking at as a solution is land management planning, how we deal with land management planning. They aren't looking at the needs of how do we preserve our surface waters. Again, is surface water just something nice to have, or is it a necessity of life? Well, in reality, it's a necessity of life.
I would say every drop is.
Yeah, it's our life as humans. It's the life of the animals that are around, the vegetation we have, not just on the river, but the entire area. I mean, this is something that's really important for people to start to grasp and understand. And then you get the whole concept of sustainability and the need for a sustainable system and how much less it costs to do sustainability than it does to do crisis management. And so you have the Arizona Groundwater Code that we have to update and deal with. You have the ecological flows issues that have to be dealt with, or else we will have lawsuits. It's like, well, we don't care about that because it's not going to affect us. Well, as long as there's critical habitat and endangered species and other elements that are in law today that aren't going anywhere very soon, then you're going to have lawsuits in the future, and somebody else is going to declare what your destiny is on how much your cost is going to be and what you're going to have to do and things like that. And then you have the recreational values that many of us moved here for the recreational values, the wildlife, viewing, canoeing or kayaking on the river, fishing on the river, and that goes directly to the economic viability of our area. Land values. If you have a land that has a view of the river, or if you own land on the river, there's studies out there to identify that as rivers start to have more and more problems, those land values that correspond to the problems on the river.
Makes sense.
It makes plenty of sense, and our entire quality of life. And I think that our region is at ground zero to deal with this issue, because many other areas are looking at it and say, well, we have the population, we'll just bring water in. Well, that's not going to just happen, even in those areas. But they don't have the surface waters we have. They don't have 13 wilderness areas. They don't have critical habitat for endangered species, and they don't have the surface waters where you can kayak. People come here to do that. Mm-hmm. So when you take a look at the population of Sedona, you say, well, it's 14,000, or 10,000. I'm sorry, 10,000 in Sedona, 10,000 people in Sedona. So they can grow. They have 3 to 4 million visitors a year. Every one of them uses water. Mm-hmm. Every one of them uses towels if they stay at a resort. Those costs have to be, and those numbers have to be included in the water usage numbers that aren't necessarily included in some of these studies. So the complexity of planning is really important.
Let's take another break. Tom O'Halloran in the studio today with the Verde River Basin Partnership. I'm Paul David, Countywide, back in just a couple minutes.
Ronnie had huge aspirations.
He knew he could get pills in the community.
He found his body in an apartment in Telford.
I never thought my son would take prescription drugs without a prescription.
Secure your medications and talk with your kids. Visit drugfree.org.
They say that when you're facing extreme danger, your life flashes before you. If you think that's sad, consider facing it before you even have enough life to flash before your eyes. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Deaths and injuries can be prevented by using the right car seat. Visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat to know what is appropriate for each age and size.
When you're out there, there's no telling what you'll find.
I see it, I see it! Oh, look at you.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
I would steal pills from my friend's mom.
We talk about all the common drugs, but never prescription medication.
I was addicted to pills.
Had I more knowledge, I would have done things differently.
Secure your medications and talk with your kids. Visit drugfree.org.
Welcome back to Countywide. We have a minute left in the program. VRBP.org for more information about Tom and I, what we're talking about today as far as Verde River Basin Partnership, VRBP.org. What do we need to do?
Well, we need to recognize that there's an issue.
We have to tell ourselves there is an issue.
We have to tell. We have to plan. We have to plan now. Okay. Not later on, but plan now.
Because like I said, we've seen 20 years go by already.
We as a public have to have the knowledge in order to understand what's occurring. And the partnership's website is one of those places to go to. We are going to be issuing a number of discussion papers. Those discussion papers will be on the Central Yavapai Highlands Water Resource Management Study on an ongoing basis. They'll be on the strategic vision for Arizona from ADWR's perspective, and they'll be on the Colorado River supply and demand study that the Bureau of Reclamation is doing, and the 7 basin states. And that is to get people to grasp the issue, to understand the issue. We're going to write them in a way that people can clearly understand and identify for people the discussion points that need to be talked about and update people on things so that they don't necessarily have to worry about where do I find this in the newspaper. They only have to go to one spot, vrbp.org, and they'll be able to find that information on an ongoing basis.
That's it. We're out of time. Great to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tom O'Halloran with the Verde River Basin Partnership. Again, vrbp.org. I'm Paul David. That's today's Countywide. We'll talk to you again next time.